to R.M.Aviation. I apologise for not posting lately. I took a bit of a break off YouTube for a bit for my own personal reasons. But let's get back to it. So today we're going to be discussing PSA Flight 182. This was mentioned in the comments of a previous video that I did, and someone said that they were interested in it. So I thought maybe that's a great topic to talk about considering there is the interest for it. So to explain the tragedy of Pacific Southwest, or PSA, Flight 182, in an even greater detail, let's go through the sequence of events and the factors that contributed to the collision and the aftermath and the lasting impacts on the aviation industry. So here's some background details of PSA Flight 182. So the aircraft details. PSA Flight 182, the aircraft was a Boeing 727-214. It was a widely used commercial aircraft or airliner at the time. It was carrying 135 people, 128 passengers and 7 crew members. The flight was en route from Sacramento to San Diego. The Cessna 172 was a small private plane. Was a Cessna 172 which had two occupants on board, the pilot and the passenger. The Cessna was operating out of Montgomery Field, which is a smaller aircraft located a few miles from the main San Diego International Airport, or Lindenberg Field. The sequence of events leading up to the collision. Pre-flight and departure. PSA Flight 182 took off from Sacramento International Airport at 7:43 a.m. It was scheduled to land at San Diego International Airport about an hour and 45 minutes after the flight. This flight was uneventful initially, but the plane descended towards San Diego. Air Traffic Control, or ATC, began to manage multiple aircraft arriving at the airport. Meanwhile, the Cessna 172 had taken off from Montgomery Field Airport around the same time. The Cessna pilot was on visual flight rules, or VFR, plan, meaning they were not relaying their own sight rather than instruments and radar. They were not in contact with San Diego ATC. The air traffic control situation. As Flight 182 neared its destination, the ATC controllers were busy managing multiple aircraft. In particular, the controllers were tracking the descending Boeing 727. As it approached the airport and guiding other planes around the area, however, the controllers were not aware of the Cessna 172's exact position, as the small plane was not on the radar. The mid-air collision at 9:01 a.m., while PSA 182 was descending towards the airport at around 3,000 feet above the ground, AGL, above ground level. The Cessna 172 climbing out of Montgomery Field towards a direction that would intersect with the 727's flight path. The controllers had cleared the 727 to descend to the given its instructions to prepare for final approach into San Diego International Airport. However, the Cessna 172 pilot was not in communication with the tower and was not following the same procedures as a commercial airliner. As the two aircraft approached each other, neither pilot saw it in time to avoid the collision. The 727's crew did not have a radar or visually identified the Cessna, nor were there any automatic warning systems in place. The collision occurred at approximately 9:01.47 a.m. The collision happened around 3 miles northwest of the airport at an altitude of around 2,600 feet above ground level. The Cessna 172 was hit by the Boeing 727's wing, tearing apart the smaller plane and causing it to fall rapidly towards the ground. The impact severely damaged the 727, specifically shearing off the plane's tail section, which caused a catastrophic loss of control. The 727 spiraled downwards, unable to recover, and crashed into a residential neighborhood near North Park in San Diego, causing a massive fire and destroying several homes. The immediate aftermath and casualties. PSA Flight 182, all 135 people on board, aboard the 727, including passengers and crew members, died in the crash. The aircraft's fuselage disintegrated upon impact into the ground, and ensuring the fire made it impossible for survivors to escape. 7 people on the ground were also killed when the plane crashed into the neighborhood, obliterating several homes. The fire spread quickly, making it even harder for rescuers to respond. The Cessna 172, both occupants of the Cessna, the pilot and the passenger, died instantly in the collision. The investigation. The National Transport Safety Board, or NTSB, conducted a detailed investigation into the cause of the accident. The findings pointed to several contributing factors, a few of which are listed below. So we had pilot error. The Cessna 172 pilot failed to maintain communication with air traffic control, meaning he wasn't following the instructions of his previous about his position to the relative other aircraft in the area. The Cessna was not on the radar contact and was climbing. As it was climbing, it unknowingly entered the flight path of a descending 727. The Cessna pilot had missed a clearance from the tower that would have ensured that he remained at a safe altitude and trajectory towards the to avoid the collision. The lack of collision avoidance technology. In 1978, there was no traffic collision avoidance system, or TCAS, installed on commercial airliners. The technology that would have automatically alerted the flight crews that the impending collision was not yet developed and required regulatory authorization. Pilots were still reliant on visual separation, meaning they were expected to visually identify and avoid other aircraft. However, this was not always practical, especially in busy airspaces or during descent and climb when aircraft are maneuvering in congested areas. Air traffic control issues. ATC was managing a large number of aircraft in the busy San Diego airspace, but lacked the full radar coverage of the smaller planes like the Cessna. While the radar was available for larger aircraft, the smaller private planes like the Cessna was operating under VFR, which meant ATC could not monitor its position precisely as they could with a commercial airliner. There was also confusion in the communication between the controllers and the aircraft, which contributed to the lack of situational awareness for both the pilots. And the fourth thing I listed here was the inadequate separation. The accident highlighted the inadequacies in procedures for ensuring safe separation between aircraft, especially in busy terminal airspaces. The controllers could not visually identify the Cessna's trajectory without tools like radars or TCAS. The collision was inevitable. Reforms and improvement in the aviation safety. The crash of PSA Flight 182 led to several significant reforms in the aviation industry to prevent similar accidents from happening in the future. Traffic Collision Avoidance System, or TCAS. In response to the accident, FAA pushed for the development of TCAS, a system that would allow aircraft to detect potential collision threats and provide visual and audible warnings to the pilots. TCAS was mandated for commercial aircraft in the early 1990s and is now a crucial component of modern aviation safety. Terminal Radar Service Areas, or TRSA. The FAA also implemented the TRSA in busy terminal areas, which provided radar separation for aircraft arriving and departing from airports. These areas ensured that ATC had a better grasp of all aircraft in the vicinity, improving overall safety. Pilot training and ATC procedures. Pilot training was improved to focus on the situational awareness and emphasis in busy airspaces. Airlines had flight schools began to put greater emphasis on air traffic control communications and procedures for identifying potential traffic conflicts. All air traffic controllers were trained to use radar more effectively to monitor small aircraft to ensure that all planes were following proper flight paths. The legacy of PSA Flight 182. Public awareness. The tragedy of PSA Flight 182 was one of the deadliest accidents in US aviation history at the time, brought up the dangers of mid-air collisions to the forefront of public concision. Technologies and procedural changes. The lesson learned from the disaster prompted significant advancements in technology like TCAS, air traffic control procedures, and pilot training, making aviation safer in the future. In summary, the crash of PSA Flight 182 was caused by a combination of pilot error, air traffic controlling challenges, and a lack of technological systems designed to prevent the mid-air collisions. The disaster ultimately led to many changes within the aviation industry and protocols and safety standards around the industry, saving countless lives in years that followed. Just so everyone knows, I would like you all to like and subscribe and leave a comment if you're interested, and also check out the merchandise store if you're interested in that as well. Thank you everyone who hangs around and watches my videos. It all helps, and I hope to continue to grow as a channel. Thank you. Bye.